In this episode of Derp Star, I've added hot air balloons to the Olympus dimension. They have randomized colors and patterns, and they fly upwards when the flame is activated. First, I'll make a new inherited scene from the bumper ship and drag the overlay vector onto the scene. Rename it to base sprite, and I want to resize it, so in the import tab, set the scale to 0.3 and re-import. Now I can center it. Then in the static particle emitter, I'll make the material unique. Then load an emission mask under particles. And I can center that as well. Then I'll move the health bar up as well. Then I'll set the visibility rectangle under drawing over the static emitter and move the base sprite node up so you can see the static over the sprite. And I'll generate the collision polygon 2D, rename it collision shape, then I'll attach a new script extending the bumper ship base class. And set the starting health and points variables in the script properties. Then I'll add the hot air balloon to the Olympus dimension's default biome. And load the Olympus dimension in the main class. So now the hot air balloons are spawning and they take damage and interact with the physics. Now I'll go ahead and hide the static and collision shape. Then set the canvas material to a new shader. First, I'll set the shader type to canvas item. Then add 3 export vectors for the different colors. Set the hint type to color. And a sampler 2D for the pattern texture. Now I can set the colors under shader param in the inspector. I'll set them to red, blue, and yellow. And I can drag the vector into the pattern. First, I'll set the scale for the masks as well to 0.3 and re-import. Then I can drag this into the pattern parameter. Then in the fragment function, I'll make a new vector for the overlay color. Which is the texture at the given UV. and the pattern color equals texture of pattern at UV. Check if the pattern color alpha channel is greater than 0. Otherwise, set the color equal to the overlay color. So now we have a basket with a completely white balloon. Since grayscale colors have the same red, green, and blue values, I'll check if the pattern color red is less than a third. Set the color equal to color 1. Else, if the red channel is greater than 2/3, set the color to color 3. The order doesn't really matter here. And if it's in the middle, set it to color 2. So now we have the pattern without any shading. So I'll multiply the color times 1 minus the overlay alpha, then add the overlay color times the overlay alpha, and set the color alpha equal to the pattern color alpha. So now it looks like that. Now to randomize the texture, in the bumper class, I'll override the build function and call the parent build, then get a random number between 1 and 8. And load the pattern texture using the pattern ID. And cast it as a string. Then set the base sprite material, set shader parameter, pattern to pattern texture. Now it does randomize the texture, but it changes all the balloons every time a new one spawns. That's because I need to enable local to scene on the material resource. Now I want to randomize the colors as well, so I'll make a new array and populate it with some presets. I'll add all the colors from the rainbow. And a couple extra just for some more variation. Now I want to select 3 random colors from the list without duplicates. So I'll make a new function in my RNG autoload called array_rand_multi. This will take an input array and a count. I'll define an empty array for the output. Then, while the count is greater than 0, I'll get a random value from the input array using array_rand. Then append the value to the output array and remove the value using erase from the input and decrement the count. Then return the output array. Now I can get 3 random colors from the color list. And set the color parameters. For all 3. So now the balloons have random patterns and colors. But as you can see, when they explode, it's using the grayscale mask still. To fix this, I'll open up the bumper ship explosion class and add a shader material variable. Then in the make debris function, set the shard material equal to the shader material. And in the bumper ship base class, in the explode function, I'll set the explosion shader material equal to the base sprite material. So now when the hot air balloons explode, the shards match the pattern and color of the original texture. Now I want the hot air balloons to stay upright, so in the integrate forces function, I'll set the applied torque equal to rotation divided by pi times -100,000. This applies 0 force when it's upright and increases up to 100,000 when it's upside down. And as you can see, the balloons correct themselves after a collision. Now I'll make the hot air balloon fly upwards. First, I'll add the flame sprite over the top, which is semi-transparent. Then add a Boolean for if the flame is on, set to true by default. And I'll make a function to activate the flame, which will show the flame sprite and set flame on to true. And I'll make the deactivate flame function, which will hide the flame sprite and set flame on to false. Then in integrate forces, if the flame is on, apply a central impulse of vector2.up times 5. So now the balloons fly upwards at a relatively rapid pace. Then I'll set the minimum speed equal to 300 and the maximum speed equal to 700. And in integrate forces, I'll get the current upward speed, which is linear velocity dot y times -1. So if the speed is greater than speed max and flame is on, deactivate the flame. Otherwise, if the speed is less than speed min and the flame is not on, activate the flame. So now the flame turns off when the balloon reaches its maximum speed and turns back on once it's slowed down. That's all for this episode of Derp Star. Thank you for watching and have a great day.